Now, as you know, if you've been following the news today, Lord Ashcroft's report on service personnel making the transition into Civvy Street suggests strongly that more support is needed. I have on the line now Dr Hugh Milroy. He's with the Veterans Aid charity, and he's been following today's announcements by Lord Ashcroft. Good afternoon to you, Dr Hugh.
Good afternoon, Simon.
So, many interested parties today. You will have your views on what Lord Ashcroft said. What do you think were the most interesting points that came out of his report?
I certainly think the devil's in the detail in this one, but what's interesting is, it's quite clear that the vast bulk of service people make a good transition. And that's very much as we at Veterans Aid. And remember, we're frontline, so if there are problems, we're going to see it head on. And for years we've been saying categorically that we're not seeing people because of a failure of transition. We can do more, of course we can always do more, but the situation now is much better than it was.
So you're saying that you don't think that this failure exists as much as he thinks it does?
Well, it's certainly not reflected in our work. And certainly, put it into perspective. There are 13 million people in poverty in this country, in the UK, and of whom 6.5 million are working poor. Now, we're seeing a lot of those people. The thing that's making their lives better when they arrive with us is the fact that they were in services, the fact that they are part of the veteran community. Remember, there are 2,000 service charities worth £1.1 billion doing a lot for veterans who, sadly end up in crisis.
So you're saying as well that when it comes to getting a job, I think this is something that we all kind of intrinsically feel, but the serviceman has advantages over, for want of a better word, a civvy.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is, in this country, if you're in crisis, you are citizen plus if you're a veteran.
So, given that what you've said, that it's not as bad a crisis as he seems to think, as Lord Ashcroft seems to think, what is missing then? What do we need more of?
I think there's huge commitment. I mean, for a long time we've been saying, it's not really as bad as people think. There aren't the people on the streets that people say there are. The prisons are not full of people. But we need to really concentrate and use this as a launch point. And I've been a real advocate for this for some years. We need a launch to use this as a launch pad for considering who veterans are in the 21st century. Let's have a real hard national debate about who veterans are. You keep hearing, veterans are special, we're this, Well, actually, it's time to pony up as far as I can see. We should absolutely be getting the government involved in discussing whether we need, is the time right for a Department of Veteran Affairs? Do we need a Veterans Charter setting out our rights? Do we need a Veterans Ombudsman? Do we need a Veterans Research Institute? But what's interesting is, all of those things pulled together, and it's quite clear that in many ways the government have acknowledged veterans with the covenant, but it's time to move it all forward.
I don't quite understand that last point. You're almost suggesting that in a kind of reverse way that we're sort of almost discriminating against our veterans. Is that what you mean? Well,
there has been a lot of effort put into saying, veterans are special, we've had the covenant, and what's interesting is the covenant hasn't really had the impact it's been said, they thought it would have. And
why is that?
Well, because it's permissive. People can join in. But if the covenant means, we have rights or status, we know where are we in this? What are our rights? It's very difficult when you have a welfare state. It's very difficult when you have a national service. So, really, if veterans are special, what are we? I mean, at the moment, just the portrayal in the media, and the media has been part of this problem, and indeed some charities would think, we're seen as hero victims and villains.
So one of the things that Lord Ashcroft did bring up was the point that those who leave the forces when they've done less than 4 years find it toughest of all again, do you agree with that?
Well, I think that's a legitimate call, and you know, because of the career transition stuff, which kicks in at the 4-year point. You know, I can't see that anyone who's done their 3 years successfully should not be entitled to that. And it's quite clear, you know, that actually, you know, for the sake of a year, the system already exists. Why can't we just extend it back to 3 years to help people? But take into account the bigger picture, which is that there is a system to support people for life.
And just to end with, Lord Ashcroft has called for more support. You seem to think it should be given to different areas than what he does.
Well, to be honest, I have not seen detail of this report. It's been kept very, very quiet, so I can't comment on the individual details of that. But what I can say is that, yes, there's more to be done, but a lot has been done, and we mustn't get carried away here thinking that, you know, nothing's done and we need all sorts of services put in place. There is already, you know, for example, you know, the last Veterans Minister was mentioning there are 379 charities for post-traumatic stress disorder.
All right, Dr Hugh Milroy, sorry, I'll do that again. Dr Hugh Milroy of Veterans Aid, thank you.